and welcome to KET's News Quiz. I'm your host, Kelsey Starks. Well, as we move into October, we sure have a whole lot of news to talk about. So let's get started, as usual, with our challenge question. Think of performing arts for this one. Dancer Misty Copeland is known for what dance form? This form of dance often requires special point shoes. It's known for graceful, artistic movements and specific foot positions the dancers must master. There are stories told through this style of dance. One that you often hear about around Christmas time is called the Nutcracker. Can you name it? Dancer Misty Copeland is known for what dance form? We'll have that answer after the news. The battle with COVID-19 sadly continues, with new cases reported every day. Within the past 2 weeks, U.S. President Donald Trump, our First Lady Melania Trump, and other high-ranking government officials have tested positive for the virus. As they battle the illness, numerous medical companies around the world are trying to find a vaccine to protect people from this coronavirus. Laboratories in the U.S., China, and other nations have been working nonstop to develop a medicine that will work. A vaccine can help our bodies fight off an illness or disease. They're usually given through shots or nasal sprays to build up barriers or antibodies inside us. Those antibodies battle bad germs and viruses that we're exposed to. While the companies have made great progress toward a COVID vaccine, most say it will probably be sometime next year before anything is ready for widespread use. NASA is bringing us news from space that's also years in the making. This month, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration plans to visit and take samples from an asteroid named Bennu. The space experts have brought back comet dust and solar wind particles, but never asteroid samples. They plan to use a robotic arm on the OSIRIS-REx Explorer spacecraft to collect just a couple of grams of dust and gravel from Bennu's surface. The scientists won't get the samples in their hands until 2023 when OSIRIS-REx returns, but they will use the information gathered by the spacecraft to start their studies. And here's another interesting NASA note. Astronaut Kate Rubins plans to vote from the International Space Station. Mission Control will forward a ballot to the space station and then relay it back to the county clerk's office once the astronaut marks her votes. She won't be the first to vote from space. Rubins wants to emphasize that if she can cast her ballot from high above the Earth, others should be able to vote right here on the ground. Time now for the first part of today's quiz. Questions 1 and 2 are about the pandemic virus. Question 1 is true or false. The United States President has tested positive for COVID-19. Is this statement true or false? Question 2, companies are working to develop a COVID, A, clone, B, vaccine, or C, imitation. Questions 3 and 4 are looking for space samples. Question 3, Bennu is A, a neutrino, B, an exoplanet, or C, an asteroid. And question 4, Kate Rubins plans to vote from the International A, Space Shuttle, B, Space Station, or C, Space Satellite. Back to the news. In many parts of the country, protests about racial injustice have continued for several months. In Louisville, Kentucky, the protests began after the death of a black woman named Breonna Taylor, who was shot during a police raid in March. Peaceful protests to honor the victims and push for justice for them are not illegal. Actually, protesting is a right spelled out in the First Amendment to the Constitution in the U.S. Bill of Rights. The First Amendment does emphasize that peaceful assemblies are legal. It discourages speech that might bring harm to others. Numerous civil rights protests have happened this year all over the world. The hope is that our U.S. and world leaders will hear the people's voices and find better ways to treat everyone equally. In India, a former diplomat and his wife are now teaching students whose schools are closed because of the pandemic. A diplomat is a person who officially represents their country to other nations and governments. The Guptas learned about students in a rural area not far from them where the government run public schools had closed. So they created an outdoor classroom area where they teach students math, science, and English. The kids walk over a mile to get to the Guptas for the lessons several times a week. The Guptas are looking for other volunteers to help them teach in order to expand their classes. While many of India's private schools have moved to virtual learning and digital classrooms, most students at the public schools can't afford the technology that's needed. Well, when you think of rats, what comes to mind? Those annoying little rodents? Well, in Cambodia, some of these rodents are being trained to be lifesavers, believe it or not. Cambodia is a country in Southeast Asia. Its capital is Phnom Penh. Vietnam and Thailand are two of its neighbors. It's a country where landmines have caused thousands of deaths over the past few decades. Landmines are explosives that are buried, often during a war, to battle enemy forces. Magua is a giant African pouched rat who was trained to find these unexploded landmines. After covering acres of land, Magua found 39 landmines and 28 other explosive devices. For his work, the rat was awarded a gold medal. You can see it displayed on a ribbon around his neck. Will you be awarded for the second part of today's quiz? Consider your constitutional rights for question 5. The amendment to the U.S. Constitution that protects peaceful protests is the A, 10th, B, 6th, or C, 1st. Question 6 is held in open space. The Guptas created an outdoor classroom for students in A, India, B, Iran, or C, Indiana. And question 7 is an award winner. Locate Cambodia, home of Magua, the landmine locating rat, on the map. Is it at point A, B, or C? Back to the news. 2020 was supposed to be a year for Summer Olympic Games in Tokyo, Japan. Thanks to the coronavirus, those games, of course, didn't happen. But Japan isn't giving up hope. Different buildings and venues were constructed to prepare for the games, including an Olympic stadium where opening and closing ceremonies would have been held. The Summer Olympics were postponed and may now begin in July of 2021. Japanese leaders are determined to host the athletes and guests from around the world, but adjustments must be made to keep both participants and spectators healthy. In August, the Olympic flame was brought from Greece to Japan. It has been on display at the new Olympic Museum with the hope that the games will happen eventually. A Hong Kong man has found a way to use old shipping containers to create a bountiful harvest on land where nothing can grow. Hong Kong is a region of China. It's located along the southeast coast of the country on the South China Sea. The farming is a lesson in recycling and using what's available. The shipping containers are huge, about the size of a train car. Arthur Lee has turned a number of them into a vertical farm on wasteland in rural Hong Kong. He's created areas inside the containers where he can maintain a good temperature to grow vegetables. And he has even put artificial ponds into some containers in order to grow fish as well. He hopes to produce healthy food for the local community in a more environmentally friendly way. And there is some good environmental news from Down Under, where 10 endangered marsupials were released back into the wild. Down Under is a term referring to Australia. Marsupials are animals that carry their young in a pouch, like a kangaroo. These marsupials are called bilbies. The rabbit-eared animals were declared extinct in the wild for over a century, but thanks to a special program, bilbies from zoos are being reintroduced into natural habitats. But don't worry, while they have more land to explore, they're still in a protected area. They have to find their own food and survive on their own, but there are no predators in this new wild home. The final part of today's quiz is protected as well. Question 8 is on hold. In 2020, 2021, Tokyo hopes to host the A. World Cup, B. Summer Olympics, or C. Stanley Cup? You can see something growing in question 9. The Hong Kong shipping containers are being used to raise vegetables and A. Fish, B. Fruit, or C. Insects. And you can go exploring with question 10. The Australian marsupials being reintroduced into the wild are A. Wallabies, B. Bilbies, or C. Koalas. Well, time now for a little break from the news. In today's extra credit report, we want to take a look at a Russian cafe where customers are invited to eat all the dishes. The country of Russia is split between Eastern Europe and Northern Asia. One of its largest cities, St. Petersburg, is located in the European part of the expansive nation on the western coast. The cafe, known as Soup Station, bakes bowls, cups, forks, and spoons from wheat flour, sunflower oil, and salt and pepper. Using a high-temperature press oven, the utensils and dishes are baked right in front of customers when they order. The dough dishes are crispy on the outside, soft on the inside, and hold up well, even with soup. Then customers can eat the containers, which cuts down on the amount of waste going into the garbage. Hopefully that idea catches on around the world. Well, have you thought about answering our opinion question? Here's a shout out to Esther, who is a 6th grader at Fort Madison Middle School in Iowa. Her curiosity had her thinking outside the box with her suggestion, what is your favorite way to eat a potato? Or maybe she was thinking inside the box of potatoes. Either way, interesting inquiry, Esther. Now, don't send us your answer to Esther's question. We'll just put it in the suggestion box to possibly use later. Right now, we want you to tell us, what opinion question would you ask, and why would you choose that question? Send your ideas to us via email at newsquiz@ket.org or use the form at ket.org/newsquiz. Be sure to include your name, grade, school, and teacher's name in your response. Time now to get a look at today's answers. Let's dance our way back to that challenge question where the answer is ballet. Misty Copeland is one of America's most famous ballerinas. She recently introduced her new children's book titled Bunheads. The book is a look at Misty's own childhood with dancers and instructors who helped her pursue her onstage dream. And she emphasizes the importance of having confidence and trying something new. Okay, here are the rest of today's answers. The answer to question 1 is true. President Donald Trump has tested positive for the COVID virus. The answer to question 2 is B. A COVID vaccine is being developed. The answer to question 3 is C. Bennu is an asteroid. The answer to question 4 is B. The astronaut will vote from the International Space Station. The answer to question 5 is C. The First Amendment protects our right to peacefully protest. The answer to question 6 is A. India is where the former diplomat and his wife have started that outdoor classroom. The answer to question 7 is C. Cambodia is located at C on the map. The answer to question 8 is B. The Summer Olympics will hopefully be held next year in Tokyo, Japan. The answer to question 9 is A. Fish and vegetables are being grown in the Hong Kong shipping containers. And the answer to question 10 is B. Australian bilbies are getting back into their wild habitat. Finally today, despite the pandemic restrictions, a Spanish puppet festival will go on. The yearly event usually draws thousands of people to the streets in various locations in Segovia, Spain. This year, the festival had to be moved from May until October. Still, puppeteers and clowns say the show must go on. That means the tradition continues with a bit of fun and entertainment. Well, that's it for us today. We hope to see you again next week for more News Quiz. Bye.